Thank you, everyone, for good morning once again to everyone that has made the time to come and connect and listen in on the ICT Uganda chapter, monthly webinar. This month, we are happy that we are hosting a lady, given that the whole month is one for celebrating women and the role they play in society. And on the call, we have also our chapter president, Mr. Brian, who will also give a bit of remarks towards the end and announcements of the next activities of the chapter. Why we chose this topic for today, identity and access management, is behind the trend that we know that there is quite a lot of improvement that has happened in different enterprises around how we manage identity. But at the same time, we also have different types of identity, also for service accounts. Sorry, I had a bit of a drop. I dropped off when I was talking about the reason why we chose the topic, which is all based around the work that we do in our enterprises with an increasing breadth of identity, both for access accounts, service accounts, and for the different APIs and integrations that we do. How we manage that, or mismanage that, can also create routes for crime to take place or malicious access. And none other than today we have the right person to make this presentation, who is Miss Claire Amuduhaire. She's a specialist in identity and access management. Claire is also a seasoned cybersecurity professional. She has a whole range of experience where she has had hands-on experience in strengthening enterprise cybersecurity, building identity governance, which is locked down, figuring out and also implementing how to lock down identity management and access control design. For this talk, she brings on board practical insight, clarity, and also real-world experience to different IAM challenges that exist in the enterprise today. So with that, you join me in welcoming our speaker, Ms. Claire. Over to you.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you for inviting me. I'm greatly honored to be here, and thank you for everybody who has joined, made time to join. My name is Claire Amuduhaire, and for the next 1 hour maybe, or up to an hour, or for the time we are here, I hope that by the end of this session, we'll be able to go away with practical skills, more knowledge, and also go away knowing if identity management is important or not, based on the discussion we'll have today. I'm also not saying that I'm perfect at this, so we'll have people on the call who are much better, who are more experienced. Feel free to supplement in the chat, and I think we'll have a Q&A at the end. So let's make it as interactive as possible, because everybody is going to have various experiences from where they're coming from and what they've studied, and it can feed into the identity space. So I'll go on and share. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll start off by seeing what an identity is. So in our daily life or in our computer IT knowledge, we do know that an identity is literally anything. But the description that's given officially is a unique digital representation of a person, a device, or an application that needs to connect to a resource. So anything that can connect, be it a service account, be it a user account, be it an API, be it a switch or router, it holds an identity in the configuration in the system, because the system in quotes is virtual. And as an individual interacting with the system, you're a real person, but you have to be represented in the virtual system. So those are the identities that we have. And then the identities vary. We have human and non-human. So human are individuals. We have a contractor. We have third parties. We have someone who is, let's say, in finance, someone who is in operations. All these are human identities. And then we have the non-human identities like service accounts, which connect. They could connect a database to an application. They could connect one application to another. APIs which integrate with third parties. We have IoT devices, like in the case of the outside work, have your smart devices, IoT devices. They all integrate. They all form identities. Okay, so we have an identity. For an identity to be complete, it needs to contain a few things. So one is what identifies this identity. Is it an email address? Is it a user ID? This is where we have like an employee ID for work. You find as soon as you join, the HR team will give you a unique identity where it knows that 123 represents Claire in our system. So where they'll find 123 has logged in, where they'll find they're looking for user 123, they reach out to, they'll know that it's Claire who is using this profile. And then we also have credentials. So HR has assigned me my user is 123 in this environment, but now to show that I'm the actual owner of this user, which is my identifier, I need to know the credentials. And we could log in using your password, and now we also have passwordless. We use a token, you use biometrics, your fingerprints, the equivalent of you log onto your phone. This is your phone because you have it, but it's also more of your phone because you know its password or its PIN, or your fingerprint can open this phone. Then we also do have attributes. The attributes are things about the identifier. Let's say this user belongs to country Uganda. This user belongs to organization A. This user belongs to finance department. This user belongs to operations department. And those are attributes. So it's literally metadata about the user. Additional information. It may not be used right now, like your location, but it tells when someone finds it and says user one is Claire, is located in Uganda, Kampala. So it gives more context about who this user is. Then finally, an identity comprises of entitlements. So I could have a user, I could have credentials, but if I can't access anything, then it's not a complete user. So in the permissions, there is where we have things like I can log into the system, I can check, I can make, I can generate a report. All these are entitlements. So it is what you can do. These are the permissions that you have in a sense of if it's a database, I have read only, I have read write. So those permissions that you have. So we have a framework under identity and access management called the AAA framework, but now it's previously the AAA, but now it's 4As. So identity and access management will ensure that the right individuals have access to the right resources at the right time and for the right reasons. So just because you have a user doesn't mean that you should access everything at a given time. Because let's say you're in finance, you're a user, fine, for this organization, but do you need to be accessing HR information? No, you don't. So it has to be the right resources at the right time. And also, let's say you're an HR user. HR, no, let's use finance. If you're a finance user, you may be an officer and your role is generating invoices. And the right resources for you to access are invoices. But the right time, it's not the right time for you to access. Sometimes you have applications where they'll set a time and say nobody's allowed to access after 5. So the system is locked for that time. And also for the right reasons. If I'm a user at finance, I have the right to generate the invoices, but I'm generating these invoices, let's say, for personal gain, not for the case of the reason as to why this access is given. So that's also covered in a way under the Identity and Access Management framework. So the first A is authentication. Authentication is asking us a question of who are you? So that the way it's checking who you are of I am who I say I am, of I have the password, my username is user1, which was assigned to me at HR. I know the password to this user. So it's the first step, or my fingerprint can open my phone. That answers the question of who are you. And then authorization does cover what can you do on this application. So we have our application, our finance application we had before, and what can you do in it? As an officer, you can print the invoice, but someone who is higher than you, let's say a supervisor, may be able to run certain reports which you cannot. So under authorization is where aspects like role-based access control are covered. So role-based access control is a concept where the access you're granted is divided according to the role that you have. Your finance officer, you get finance officer roles and its permissions. And then your finance supervisor, you get supervisor roles and its permissions. Then attribute-based access control, which is the ABAC, is according to where you're located. So we do have context of, let's say, I'm a finance user, but I'm a finance user at another country, but we're in the same network. The same rights you have you may not be able to access my system as Uganda. Let's say you're from another country like Kenya. We are all in the same organization. We're all finance officers. The attribute role-based access control is telling us that we have these rights, they're the same, but because you're in another country, you cannot access the information under one country. Then we do have our third A, which is accounting. So accounting is like the post-mortem of the framework. It's asking us, what did you do? So accounting covers items like logging, monitoring, and audit trails. In accounting is where we set rules to say, all these items, what did you do? It's saying, I logged in, so user one logged into the system. So we need to have an audit trail somewhere that says on this date, 27th at 11, user one logged in. And then what did user one do when they were logged in? So they changed the profile, they generated an invoice, they deleted an invoice, and then their session ended. But also the accounting option goes further to say, what device did they use? Were they using their phone? Were they using their laptop? Were they using their desktop? So all those are covered under logging. And monitoring is for certain activities, you find that certain activities are supposed to be monitored. Let's say amounts of information that were deleted, or for accountability of, we have 20 sales this month. What did we do in the system? So it helps us to know what happened during that duration. Let's say from a monthly log, a weekly log. Then the last which is newly added, is administration. It covers the joiner, mover, leaver life cycle. And from the example we've given of someone joining an organization as HR, I joined the organization, that's a joiner. Let's say a year down the road, I move to another team, that is mover. And then L is for leaver. So at the end of, let's say, 3 years, I leave this organization. So the administration aspect just shows us how to manage our life cycle of, if a user has joined, we've given them the initial access, and then when they move, do they still need the access they had in their previous team or not? And that is all covered under the JML process. Okay, so from the previous slide, we did indicate that identity and access management looks like it's more on the technology side. It is technology creating the users, it's technology maintaining the users, but identity and access management also covers business. It's an enabler for business. In what ways? So in ways of improving productivity, by simplifying our joiner process of, a person logs in, when a person joins, they are created, and it's seamless. They don't have to jump through hoops just to get their first password, jump through hoops just to get their next password. If we have a seamless process that is secure, we can support productivity, so that someone doesn't say that I've spent 2 weeks trying to get my users in order, or I've spent a month trying to get my users in order, which is time they would have used to do more productive work on the business side. Then it secures digital transformation. This is in cases of clients. We have items like internet banking. The world is going digital, and our identities and our customers they also want their access to their digital resources. They also want digital, they want AI, they want seamless mobile banking. So when our identities are secured, we have items like two-factor or multi-factor authentication, access to mobile resources. It secures our customers in the digital space, which gives comfort to business that we can be able to progress with business, not wondering if we are safe or not, because our clients have their 2FA enabled, and they can access their resources fast. Then customer experience. So as identity and access management goes through the processes of evolving, we find that we have options like someone that need a username or may have a username, does not need a password and very many passwords to reach their resource. So the clients do want a simpler, seamless login. So that's where organizations are reaching out for passwordless login, for biometrics, which are easier to access. But the trick is to keep even if it's easy to access, it has to be safe to access as well. So identity and access management helps us to also comply with our regulations. Organizations most organizations do have a regulatory requirement. And if you can't prove that something happened, then something didn't happen, because the regulator will ask you, show me when these users were created. If you can't prove it, then it didn't happen. So identity and access management has that aspect of monitoring and logging, saves the organization, giving them evidence for compliance. So that under compliance is where we have our, it may not be necessarily regulatory, it could be to policies, to standards, depending on the setup. Then we have risk reduction. So using the principle of least privilege and continuous monitoring, you get fewer breaches. I'll go through a bit of least privilege. So in the principle of least privilege, it's telling us that a person is given the least amount of permissions to do their job. So we are not saying we are giving them no permissions. We're making sure that we've given them everything that they need to do the job. Not everything that they'll need in the future. When the future comes, then you'll give the access they need then. But right now, this is what the person needs to achieve their goals and to do what they need. The advantage in that is that sometimes if the person doesn't have permissions which are excessive, let's say an officer in finance, and then I have rights to drop a table in the database. I may not be a malicious person, but one day I could be like, oh, curiosity may get the better of me, and I'm like, what does this button do? And I click it and drop a table, and I click it and we lose customers or we lose information. And if that button was not available for this user, then it wouldn't have been an issue. So we reduce the risk of such insider breaches. And also, if this user is compromised and they have excessive permissions, it gives the threat actor more leeway and more access to move through the environment. Okay, so identity and access management works hand in hand with identity governance, because identity and access management is basically telling us how we are creating the users, how we are managing the users, and then at the end, how we deprovision the users, that's deleting them from the system. But the governance bit is telling us the processes we follow, the systems that we follow, the policies, the standards that we use to manage these profiles, because we need a certain system. So under identity governance, we do have a number of things we can follow for good governance of our identities. So one is visibility, because you cannot protect what you do not know and what you do not see. So visibility is building an inventory and then naming all our identities in our environment. We have, let's say we have 10 users, we have 10 service accounts, we have 10 database accounts, we have 10 bot accounts. So that kind of writing, knowing all our resources at a given time. We have 10 applications, so we know where all of them are at a time. We know that this is what we have. Sorry. Then 2 is ownership. For these 100 profiles that we found, who owns them? And this goes to cover us in the base of accountability, because we need to know if let's say in the future I want to change password for this account, who will do it? If this account needs some remediations, who will action? So I found over time that it's better for accountability to be one own at a time, as opposed to saying the finance team owns this. We may know that it belongs to the finance team, but who is responsible for this service account right now? Because from experience, if you're looking for the finance team, everybody will tell you, oh no, it's so and so, that account, we use it, but so and so will tell you. So if you do not have a person who is accountable at that moment, you may not get to remediate or to work with identities. Then 3, we have classification. Our classification is we have these 100 accounts that we've created, that we found out in 1, and we know their owners in 2, but how do we rate them? If these accounts or these identities that we have been compromised, then what would happen? So classification is best done by risk level. Of this is if I have an application for which does maybe my invoicing, and if it goes down, then we may get a fine from a regulator. We may lose a lot of data. So we classify them according to risk level, based from high risk, medium risk, low risk. And then after we've classified, we do have life cycle governance. So life cycle governance is as part of our identity governance, from when a user is created, joined 2026, moved to another team 2027, left in 2029. So the governance bit is telling us at the end of, let's say, a quarter or a month, how many people joined, how many people left, how many people moved. So if I move to operations, it needs to show in my life cycle, and also it needs to show in the identities that I hold. So in my year 1, when I was in finance, I had finance officer rights. And now in my year 3, I'm in operations. Do I still have finance officer rights? No, I probably have operation officer rights now. So life cycle governance is that journey as we go along the JML, the joiner mover lever, how are our identities being managed then. Then number 5 is access aligned to purpose. So I think we covered it in the previous slide of you only need the principle of least privilege will advises that you only give access when it is required. So this could be I'm an admin and I'm going to deploy a new solution. But after deployment, it's no longer in my docket. I hand over the application to another team. So there's absolutely no need for me to maintain these deployment rights up to permanently, because I will not need them again. So that's where we find the aspect of just-in-time access of I'll have this access for a day or 2, and then I'll be done with it. Then monitoring with intent. We did cover monitoring, but monitoring with intent is just specifying that we are not just monitoring for keeping logs. We are monitoring to see changes. There are some, let's say, service accounts which are sensitive. So you would like to know if someone is attempting to change password for this service account. If there's some activities on the database, like dropping a table, if someone is moving a terabyte of information, you want to know. So those kind of activities which are deemed less sensitive or critical can be put in when you're alerting for them. You're looking out for specific items saying, if user tries to move 1 terabyte of information, stop the user and alert. So that intention is to find it's done with intention, not just monitoring. Then finally, under identity governance, we'll have the periodic reviews. So the reviews can also be organized according to 3, which was classification of I have my high risk accounts, and I think I need to review them every quarter or every month. And I have my low risk accounts, I can review them once in 6 months, and so that I can know if something has changed on them. If there are more, if I do it every month or every week, depending on how critical it is. So that is covered under periodic review. The review could be, of course, basically according to how your standard states, because there's no one standard across the board. The requirement is that there's a periodic review. So now you drill into your organization standard or procedure or policy and see what does it require, and according to the risk level that's there, then you'll do your reviews. Oh, I'm checking the time to see that I've not gone overboard. Okay. Then we'll cover privileged access management. So identity and access management is just looking out for all identities. But within identity and access management, we remove a small part of the privileged access. Why we remove it is because it has more rights. So privileged access is access which gives someone rights to do more, to do much more in the system. Let's say if I'm a finance officer, but in the same system, I have an admin, or I have a user admin, someone who creates users. That person is more privileged than me in terms of the system. So for admins, the emphasis is because we know that if anything happens to these accounts, the compromise would be much more than if an ordinary officer, my account got hacked into. It wouldn't be the same effect as an admin for the same system being hacked into, because the admin will create his, if someone hacks an admin account, which is admin user, go ahead, create other malicious accounts, and then maybe log onto a server, and then move from one server into another server, move from one server into the cloud. So the reason that privileged access management is catered for specially is because of that, because the impact is way bigger. So privileged accounts do include admins. Those are the service accounts, then jailbreak accounts of applications which allow jailbreak. Those are accounts which are kept for emergency access. I know that there are some applications which do have it, so those are also considered privileged. Oh. So under a privileged access management, we do have certain components, and they include credential vaulting. So since accounts for admins are considered special and unique, recommendation is to keep the credentials in a vault. A vault is a vault, like we keep our money there in this vault, so we keep our passwords there in this vault. So someone will need to retrieve it when they need it. And also, the admins do not have to like write them somewhere, because if I'm admin and then I write it somewhere, and then it can be found and compromised. And then I think most of our standards, or the majority of standards for most organizations, have a requirement to have passwords for admins rotated more frequently. If the normal accounts are rotated after 30 days, the passwords are rotated after 30 days. For admin accounts, usually it's less than that. So some are rotated after every use, and the vaults usually have the capacity to automate that. Of the password can be changed daily, can be changed after every use, according to the requirement. Then we have a concept of just-in-time access. I think I did cover it a bit, but I could be a user and I need to deploy. Or a contractor, a third party, and I need to deploy a new solution. But after deployment, I'm going to maybe move to another place to deploy for another organization. So just-in-time access covers the temporary access. So it's elevated, it's temporary, it's approved. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but all our access must be approved. Someone has to say, give this person these rights, because it has to have ownership. Then we have a principle of least privilege. I think I did cover that. But we'll go through it one more time. That's giving the minimum permissions required to do the work at that given time. Then session monitoring. So for admins, monitoring is important because of the kind of sensitivity that their work carries. So we have the ability to monitor the sessions, record. Most password vaults do have an option to record sessions, monitor the commands that are being done, and alert or block activities in real time. That's to cover in case of compromise. So we don't want a situation where a month later is when you discover that, oh my God, a table got dropped. Yet, if we were alerting on that, we would know in real time and stop it or block it in real time. Then PALM does cover behavioral analytics. And this is where our machine learning and AI is, I think, mostly used. Of machine learning is saying every day this user logs in from 9 to 5. Okay, 9 to 7. But now on this Tuesday, this user is logging in at midnight. So unusual logins or unusual access is we get an alert and block the activity, or if it is activity that you're aware of, you just note it that this is an expected activity. We have a change, we have a fix to deploy, we have an incident to fix, and those one-offs are covered. Then we have service account governance. Under privileged access management, the service accounts outlast the users. So we come and go. We admins, we come into the organization and go, but the service accounts usually stay because of the kind of work that they're doing. They're connecting an application to a database, an application to another application. So the work still goes on. So these service accounts, at a given time, you need to know the service accounts that are in your environment, and the passwords needs to change as per your standard, but also because I was an admin, let's say here, and then I left, went to another organization. So I'll go with your password. If I could compromise you, or someone could buy it from me at a fee, and then so all service accounts, and this does not only cover service accounts, it does cover non-human accounts. Let's say the generic accounts, the robotic accounts. So because the bot is going to be there, but I know its password. So when I move or periodically, this password needs to be rotated, and they need to know that Claire left this organization. Who is handling the bots now? So we hand over to a new person. Then the jailbreak access. So jailbreak access is when is usually access left behind in some cases for some particular applications or platforms where they are leaving behind, let's say, what do they call it? Literally a break glass of if everything goes wrong, if at a given time, let's say every admin in this profile is locked, every user we've tried is failing, and they leave that leeway. But I think very few applications do allow break glass, sorry. So for those accounts, they also need to be monitored and controlled, because if this is your, let's say, one silver bullet at the end, and then I move with its credentials to another organization, I could use it against you. So we'll cover identity and access management best practices. So our best practices are zero trust. So under zero trust is we don't assume because you said you are user one that you're user one. We have to know, are you user one? put your password, put your 2FA, and why are you logged in? Geolocation is showing that you're in Canada, and yet user one with this same password was in Uganda just yesterday. So we don't trust immediately, we verify. So we verify after every request of username, password, verify, is this the person who's logging in? Same applies to our service accounts or any settings that we do in the system for identities. We don't trust them automatically because let's say for APIs, you're saying allowing all traffic from third-party vendor one. At every given time, this third-party account, when it's reaching us, we need to ask it, are you who you say you are? Show me your token. So that kind of practice is zero trust. Then we do have the role-based access control. We've covered it, and attribute-based access control. It's assigning permissions based on roles or attributes and not individuals. So we don't want a scenario where in the systems, user one, let's say on that day, I'll be like, today I need to log into this machine, this server, and it's given to me as an individual. It may be hard to manage for the admins to go back and look for this particular server, which you are given access to, and remove you because now you don't need it. But if access is given to an AD group, when your time comes, it will be managed via the AD group instead of as an individual. Then we do have best practices. That's automated lifecycle management. We find that if our join and move and leave process is automated, it eliminates any accounts which we deem as orphaned accounts. So orphaned accounts are accounts which have no ownership. Find an account, been there, seated on that server, nobody knows what it does, nobody knows anything about it. So if, let's say, my user one, when I was in finance, has been seated on this server, if the lifecycle is automated, then when I leave, all these accounts which are tied to me get removed or get reviewed and remediated, knowing that I have left. So 10 years down the road, someone will not find user one randomly on a certain PC or box somewhere because the lifecycle management is automated. Then MFA and adaptive authorization. So it's best practice for us to have more than just a password. We utilize tokens, we utilize biometrics. The tokens could be software tokens or the physical tokens depending on the rights, on the roles and the risk that they bring. Let's say if we have admins, the same way they log in, since they're exposing us to higher risk, their level of checks are more. Or if we have rules in place saying that for a given time, if anyone logs in using this profile and they are not in their expected geolocation, we found that their username is okay, their password is okay, their other things are okay. What else can we do to verify that this person is who they say they are? So according to the risk level they bring, MFA and other MFA-related adaptive authorization methods can be put in place. Then we do have regular audits or reviews or checks. They may not be audits, but periodic reviews of check on the governance, check on the users we have in the system, check on this application and know that at a given, regularly, like a month, 2 months, a quarter, or depending on your policy as an organization, how do I check for the things that I need? if you are subscribing to, let's say, the ISO standard does have its requirements. So you check regularly against that standard that you have, and you'll be able to know where you are at a given moment and how to adjust. If, let's say, we are having one control where we're lacking, when we regularly review ourselves, you find that you'll be better placed, as opposed to waiting for someone to come from an audit firm and come and find these issues, which you could have reviewed by yourself and found. Then lastly, on the practices is user education. So usually everybody's going for the path of least resistance of, if you can share this password, let's share it. Why do I need to get my own user when you're sharing this one? So training on activities, on things like password sharing, how to set your password correctly, because users can be phished, and now with AI, the phishing, previously with AI, before AI, you'd think, if I find them, if I get a random email and it has wrong English, or it doesn't look okay, then it is not to be trusted. But now AI will give you a good phishing email with the correct English, correct spellings. It's not jumbled. So training the user does help for them to be aware of what to look out for, without necessarily thinking that it's just wrong English that we need to look out for. So these are some of the modern technologies and solutions that we have in the identity and access management space. We do have passwordless authentication, which is the keys we've talked about, the authenticators, the biometrics, what do they call them? FIDO tokens. And then we also have cloud-based, where our Microsoft Entra ID and AD integrations are covered. Ping Identity, that's centralizing across the SaaSes, and that's the making sure that all our platforms, let's say Microsoft Entra and on-prem and AD on-prem, have replicating information. So that linkage. Then machine learning and AI can be used to detect unusual logins, automate responses, and then to cover all these activities where someone needed to, let's say, look through individual and say, my Excel sheet has user one, then I try to find user one somewhere else. But if they're automated and set up correctly, AI and machine learning can help and automate these. Then identity governance, that covers us in the sort of oversight. So governance without waiting for a third party to check first, of continuous governance. Then the mobile and BYOD security, that's bring your own device. So we do find that we have third parties in our environments, and they are necessary because they're bringing us a product, they're bringing us a service. So we need to find a way to integrate them within our access, but making sure that they are secure and they're not bringing us more risk. So we are securing their devices, or that for the time that we are connected to them, we are securing their device and making sure that they're not introducing new risk in our space. Finally, our food for thought is, what would happen to our identities in the face of emerging technologies? And I'm going to leave that for you, but I'll give my opinion on what would happen. So I think our identities can survive the era of emerging technologies, but they need to adapt, and our identity access management needs to adapt. We need to use the same tools like AI, machine learning, use all these new tools to make it better for our work and for our identities to be managed, because the identities are not going to go away. Even if you have a bot, the bot holds an identity in your environment. So it's still an identity. So the identities are not going to go away, but we have to just manage them and manage them well in the environment in which they've come. And I think the basics are literally the same across, where for the old technologies and the new technologies, the basics are almost the same. So I believe that if we cover the basics, then we can integrate in both our old systems, our old ways of work, and into our new ways of work. And thank you. Questions? I'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Claire, for the very good presentation, bringing out all the aspects around identity and access management. Also, the food of thought that you've given us as well. So at this point, I'd like to invite anyone from the attendees who can raise a question. You can either raise your hand or you can put a question in the chat, and then we can. If you have a question or answer or request for clarity, seeing a lot of Bogalo from the team. Thank you. More Bogalo. Thank you so much. Claire, someone was asking me about the presentation that you made to sort of clarify on how IAM fits into or would help in a scenario where a hacker lands on credentials or identity of a normal user and then uses that to do privilege escalation in that same environment. What would be your take on that? How would IAM help in that?
So my take on that would be, given that we know we've classified, when you go back to the slide, we've classified all our identities. So this identity is a normal user and has been classified as such. So I'm going to give two takes of before the person gets hacked, this user gets hacked. If we've classified them as a normal user and we've not given them any privileged rights, we've not allowed their user account to log into a server, that would prevent the privilege escalation, because we'll know when you attempt to log into a server with these credentials which you've stolen, you'll not be able to get in because it will not allow you. But if it does allow you, if all activities are monitored and you're finding a new user or a new identity is logging in, the default, if we've set rules in place saying, if a user who is unknown logs into this machine, then block them. Or if someone has stolen my credentials and is logging in from Iran, and it's showing geolocation of this person logging in is Iran, then the geolocation, that's unusual activity, so it blocks. So the rules set in place would be able to catch all those anomalies. So I think from the start, if we do it right at the beginning of the setup, then we'll be more secure. I hope that answers it, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, that does. And I like the question you gave, that if done right, that's where the magic happens. But it was both spot on. I'd like to check back again with the audience. If you have any question or comments, you can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you want to speak. As a wait for any chat, I just wanted to bring out the attention of participants here that I was reading through the incident, the Auditor General's report, who was called upon to investigate that famous Bank of Uganda Ministry of Finance fraud incident where around $60 billion was involved in a certain electronic fraud. So what the OG report revealed interestingly was that active email accounts of former staff members were used to initiate the fraud. These are staff who left in 2021, and this fraud happened in 2024. So you have about 3 to 4 years of an identity still being active. So when Claire mentioned that part of identity governance involves the life cycle management, and then that points to that fact. Why this is very important, again, for the people on the call is that for the people, the part of the people who were investigated or are facing these charges, unfortunately, include IT people because of what we call failure to deactivate accounts of terminated or resigned employees. So an omission finds you the dock, just like that. So that's why it's important that you do find ways of implementing this if it's not yet done in your organizations. Any other question or query from the audience? If there's none, I just would like to thank Claire for having volunteered and to offer this presentation, which has been very insightful. Thank you so much for this. And also thank all the participants that have made the time to come and attend this webinar. As the ICT chapter, we want to keep it consistent. So every end of month, we'll be organizing these knowledge sharing events. We follow a trend where the last one we had was in person. This one was online. So the next one will also be online because we do have a speaker coming in from another chapter in our location. I also at this point want to introduce the chapter president, Mr. Brian Mwine, who will also give a few remarks and then we close it off as well. Over to you, Brian.
Hi, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone on the call. Let me just share my screen. Don't know if you can see me or... Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone on the call. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your deliberations in attending this webinar. We really do appreciate you. We appreciate that you've given in your time for these chapter activities. Just before Emmanuel cut me off, I did have a question for Claire. I don't know if you'll have time to answer it before I can make my comments. I just had a question about, artificial intelligence, and I believe there's this new feature going around of agentic AI, where artificial intelligence agents are actually being used for autonomous activities. Do you think it would have, in your opinion, any effect on identity and access management in the near future?
Thank you for the question, Brian. I
Yeah.
believe it would, considering that businesses and organizations are embracing AI to do work. The threat actors are also embracing AI to make their work easier. So how we lock down our identities or our machines, let's say if an agent is deployed and if it's deployed and is trying to find servers, but all our servers are authenticated with 2FA or MFA or passwordless authentication, it will not reach us easily. It will be like our identities are covering us, our rules are covering us in one way or another, and making it harder. And of course, as we find breaches every time, we also prepare differently. Or if we find we have let's say we have our application server, which is most critical, we have to make sure it's patched. We have to look out for the basics. I think the basics would definitely cover us even in the AI times, because we can use our AI and machine learning for good to help us find any issues on these particular identities. If I say, let's say I'm going to Microsoft and saying, how many of my cloud accounts have not been logged in 3 months, and auto disable them, or how many of my accounts have logged in unusually and you disable them. So over time, if we keep doing the basic practices at the beginning, it would make it harder for the unwanted agents to reach you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Claire, would like to thank you once again for your time again to present and to facilitate this webinar. Thank you so much. Just a few comments from the ISC2 chapter. Officers, we have now changed leadership. Our previous president couldn't decided to step down, and myself, being the vice president, have been asked to take up the role as the president of the Uganda ISC2 chapter. The rest of the leadership will be